Because it is Monday, it is after 7, and we're going to draw stuff in Model and Fusion 360. So we've thoroughly scared everybody away with the advanced nature of this class, and I'm glad that a couple of you have decided to join us here. This month, in the advanced class, so this week and next week, we're going to talk about surface modeling. So this is going to kind of be like an introduction to surface modeling. Surface modeling, normally when we model in Fusion 360, we're in the solid tab. You probably maybe never even noticed that we're in the solid tab. But here, this tab up here, there are a whole bunch of tabs, and we're in the solid tab. We're going to spend a lot more time this month in the surface tab. The difference between a solid and a surface is a solid is a fully enclosed shape that has a volume enclosed within it, and a surface is like an imaginary sheet of paper that has no thickness, but it can still be a shape. So like this, if you can imagine this as a surface, this piece of paper in reality has thickness. A surface in Fusion 360 has no thickness, but it can be whatever shape you tell it to. So you can extrude out an unclosed shape, and you could make just a surface that looked just like this. Or, yeah. So, introduction to surfaces. We're going to go ahead and get started by creating a new sketch. So I'm going to not save that. I'm going to open up a new document here. And I lied. We're not going to start by creating a new sketch. First, we're going to create a surface to draw that sketch on. So my part here has got an angled top, and I'm going to start by making that angled top. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a construction plane to draw that surface on. So these construction planes are a little bit more advanced use, right? So we can locate a surface in our three-dimensional world anywhere we want to draw on. And I'm going to start by creating a plane at an angle. So most of the time, in order to use a lot of the stuff in the construct menu, you have to have some existing geometry in order to reference, right? You want to reference some existing geometry in order to tell it where your plane or your axis is. We're going to use one of our 3 existing axes here as a reference for this plane at an angle. I'm going to choose the green axis here as the axis that I'm going to reference. And now I can specify what angle I want this plane to be at. I'm going to make it 25 degrees. That seems like a fine angle. I encourage you to make it an angle that makes you happy. Really, the idea here is we're not going to have like a specific useful part. We're just going to kind of take a tour of the surface working environment and kind of intro to surfaces here. So hopefully we'll all end up with different parts at the end of this. But anywhere between 0 and 45 degrees would be fine. I probably wouldn't go steeper than 45. But I'm going to go with 25. All right. I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to draw on that surface. So from the Create menu, I'm going to come up and create a sketch. I'm going to create that sketch on that plane at an angle that I just made. Now, this is where it's handy. All these planes end up kind of like on top of each other over here. So it's handy to name our planes in our construction folder. Because then it's really easy for us to pick them over here in our construction folder instead of choosing them in our drawing environment where they're all on top of each other. I have not done that yet, but it'd be good for us to do that later.
Is that the
No, you're good.
How do I know? I think I selected the 30-degree plane.
Yeah. So.
But actually, I'm not sure. I think it grabbed the wrong one.
So you could finish your sketch if you wanted to, and then you could delete it, and then you can create another new sketch. It kind of spins you around, so you're looking right down at it. Now here's an advanced thing. I'm gonna draw mine on the wrong plane, and then I will be able to show you how to fix it later. So here, finish sketch. I want to delete that. And I'm going to create a sketch. I'm going to purposefully create it on the wrong plane. And then I'll show you how to fix it later, just in case you have that problem. All right, so from the Create menu, I'm going to go ahead and grab my Ellipse tool. The Ellipse tool is a way to make an oval. So the way you use your Ellipse tool is you click one time to specify the center, and then I'm going to move my mouse out, and I can specify a distance here, so I'm going to make it like 2 inches. I'm kind of imagining this as being like a handle grip exercise, so I'll click to specify that, and then the smaller radius, if I made it 2, I'll make it like 1 1/4. So I ended up with 2 by 1 1/4. And I can move those dimensions out so they're easier to read. No, you don't need a degree for that, no. I just set mine right out at an angle there. So you made the tab. Is it a tab? So now you just got to click. Now you can move your mouse down. There it is. That's all right. Close enough. Close enough. So.
That's why I did mine at a different. I did mine differently.
That's all right. That's all right. Creative freedom. So we want to have 2 ovals here. I want my next oval to be a little bit smaller than this oval, so I'm going to use the offset tool just to make a second oval inside of this existing oval. So I'll click on modify and then offset. I will specify the oval there as the shape that I'm going to offset, and I'm going to move it inwards. When I use the offset tool, I have to try to figure out which way is positive and which way is negative. So for me right now, it's a negative number to move my oval inside of my existing oval here. But sometimes it's not, so I have to use my powers of observation to figure out which way is positive and which way is negative. I'm going to move it to negative 1/8 of an inch. And again, some creative freedom here. If you want to make yours a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger, I encourage you to do so. And then we'll see what we end up with at the end. All right, and then I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to say Finish Sketch. So now.
Yeah, I did the offset, but it's not fully defined, so I can warp it.
Oh, interesting. You possibly like deleted your offset afterwards? Oh, something weird is going on there.
Something.
Yeah, something got messed up there.
Offset.
Cool. So now, let's say you're like, oh no, my plane, I can tell that my sketch here is definitely not on that plane at an angle. I tried to put it on that plane at an angle, but something didn't work, right? Because I could tell because it's not, my sketch is not at an angle. You can redefine the plane that your sketch is on. So down here in my timeline, I've got my sketch icon that's appeared here. And if my sketch is on the wrong plane, I can right-click on it, and I can say, right-click on the feature in my feature timeline, and I can choose to redefine the sketch plane. Now, if you already drew yours on the right plane, you don't have to do this step. And now if I just specify the plane that I actually wanted to draw it on, it just pops right into that, right into position, and now I'm good to go. Cool? Cool. All right, so now let's draw the bottom part of our little handle grip thing that we're making. And the bottom part is going to be created on another plane that we're going to specify here. So we're going to make a plane that exists down below this other plane that we made. And to do that, we're going to use the offset plane option. So we're going to construct an offset plane, a plane that is offset by a specific amount from an existing plane. And the existing plane we're going to use is not the plane that we made. It's going to be an existing, what are the starter planes, let's call them, between my blue and my green axis. So the plane that divides, it's kind of like flat, the ground, I guess you could say, between my blue and my red and my green axis. And now you can see if I look at this at an angle, I'm just going to drag this blue arrow down. I think a good handle size, or a good height for a handle, is like 4 inches. So I'm going to go down -4. What's that? Yes, yes, it does. Yeah, so, so, and this too is a kind of a thing I have to try and see which direction is positive and which direction is negative. Just by dragging this blue arrow, I can see, oh, I'm going negative, and that's the direction that I want to go. Because when you offset a plane to the right or to the left, it's not always obvious which is positive and which is negative direction. I mean, all directions are positive if they are in your own mind. The positivity of a direction is a mindset question, not a numerical question. Yeah. All right, cool. So, I mean,
can't see this plane.
do you have your planes turned off? Do you have the visibility on your planes turned off? Like there's a little eyeball?
Yeah, the little eyeball is on.
Okay.
I think it's the zoom.
Are you zoomed in too far? So you might not be able to see it there because you're looking kind of straight on. It's like trying to see the edge of a piece of paper.
Ooh.
Hit your home button.
Oh.
Why can't I see my grid?
There you
There.
go.
Oh,
There you go.
oh, there it is.
Yeah,
It's just-
cool.
It's weird.
Yeah. All right, perfect. So I'm gonna hit OK. I'm gonna name that plane. So that plane in my construction folder here is plane 2. I'm gonna call it the bottom, because that's the bottom of what my handle grip is. And now I'm going to use that plane to create a sketch. Actually, we've got a sketch to name. Let's keep up with our housekeeping as we do it. This is what being an advanced Fusion 360 user is all about. This is going to be the top of our handle, so I'm going to call it the top. And so I'm going to name my sketch the top. Keeping up with our housekeeping here. So now we can create a new sketch. And that new sketch is going to be created on that bottom plane, the plane that I just named bottom, the offset plane that we just made. Now, I want to make sure that I'm going to draw another oval down there, but I want that oval to be right underneath my existing oval. And I can take geometry from one sketch and push it down or project it down to the plane that we already have that's kind of like 4 inches down below this one, right? I can do that with a tool in our Create menu called Project Include.
Hang on.
Yeah.
For some reason when I clicked to create a new sketch, it did some weird things, so I'm trying to catch up.
Sure.
Now I got it back to this plane.
Yeah, there you go.
But
So I think you're sketching somewhere already. So let's go ahead and say finish sketch. And now you can create a sketch. Oh, something was already selected. So let's say finish sketch here. So click like off here somewhere. Something is already selected. Now let's say create a sketch again. There we go. And now you can click on your bottom plane there. There we go. Cool. All right. So now we're gonna project our center point down there. So I'm gonna, from my Create menu, I'm gonna go ahead and choose Project Include, and I am going to project over this center point here. And you can see I'm looking at this at kind of a off angle. If I look at it straight on, and I click on it, on the center point to project it down, you can see that I've got one geometry selected. And if I move my navigation cube so I can see it a little bit more three-dimensionally, you can see what it's doing as I hover over things, as it kind of goes, oh, this is what that would look like if we projected it down to the plane that we're working on right now. But I just need the center point. Cool?
Yeah, I think so.
I've got like redness all through 2, 3, and 4. Little red.
So I don't see your ovals. So let's go ahead and say finish sketch. You can just click on that button so you don't have to click twice.
Oh.
There we go. So that sketch 2, 3, and 4, let's delete those. Because I don't think there's anything on them. And then let me use your mouse here so I can kind of understand what angle we're looking at here. So we want to create our offset plane. If I make this, if I right click on that and say make that top. Now it's a little bit easier to go down. And now this bottom plane, where are you located? So the bottom plane is not really in the right spot. So I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to make it again. Cool. All right, so now we can create our couple of ovals down there. Now that we've got our center point. So from the create menu, I'm going to go ahead and choose the ellipse tool here. I'm going to pick my center point for my ellipse. I'm going to make the base of my handle a little bit skinnier.
The center point is being the one we projected down?
Correct. Yeah, the center point is the one that we projected down. I'm going to make my large diameter 1.25 inches, and my small diameter, I'm still going to make that 1, I think. And then same deal here. So we want to really create 2 ellipses. So we've got our first ellipse, and now to create the second ellipse, I'm just going to use the offset tool to create our second ellipse. And I wouldn't really worry too much about like the specific numbers here. You know, if yours is a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, totally fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and say finish sketch, and then I'm going to come around and look and see what you guys got. Because what we want is some smaller ellipses underneath some larger ellipses.
This is, it's hit offset, but it don't look right.
One of them is really big, right?
This is the first one at that angle.
And these ellipses are really big.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
should be smaller.
Yeah, I made mine smaller, but you know, like yeah.
Yeah, my offset ellipse didn't work for whatever reason.
Yeah, something's funky about that. It should be like locked in place. You shouldn't be able to move your offset ellipse. It should be, you know, kind of constrained there. Yeah, there you go. And then you can just type in 125.
Yeah, the ellipse doesn't look correctly offset. Well, it just
Try
looks like that.
looking like looking straight down at the plane. So if you click on the top view of your navigation cube there. Yeah, I think it is correct. It's just because you were looking
Because
at a
the way
weird
it is,
angle.
it just made it look like it.
Yeah. How you doing?
I was following you, but it's not doing that.
Sure. So now if you come up to create and then ellipse. And now we'll click to place the center point of our ellipse
Right
on,
here.
yeah, there, I think that's the center point, yeah, there you go. And now you can click somewhere down here, like straight down, like so your line is straight down, so your line is at an angle, but that's fine, that'll be just fine. And then you can, you know, click to place that again, that's also just fine, there we go. And now, now you can make your offset.
Yeah. Awesome.
You're good.
I don't know why I was like, I swear I did that, but like,
Yeah, no worries.
I did it with the hand, so. Just did that first.
Yeah, then you can offset it by like 1/8 of an inch or so. And again, if the shapes are a little bit off, totally fine. Just the idea is to get to these surface tools. So, which is what we're going to do next. So, I am going to switch from the comfort of my solid working environment to the surface environment. So I just have to click on the surface tab up there at the top. We could have been making this whole sketch in the surface environment. This sketching tool is exactly the same sketching tool. Creating a sketch here is exactly the same as creating a sketch in the solid working environment. However, most of the other tools are not. So any of the tools that are orange They may have the same name as tools that are in the solid working environment, but they are indeed different tools. So the extrude tool here, if you hit E, you will get the extrude tool from the solid working environment. You will not get the extrude tool from the surface working environment. So you'll need to come to the menu here and assign keyboard shortcuts if you have, or if you want to, or come to the menu to choose the right tool. So we are going to choose, as the tool that we're going to use to create our handle, the loft tool. Loft tools are really powerful. I'm a big fan of lofts. Lofts let us take one shape and transform it into another shape. So we're in the surface working environment. I clicked on create and then loft. And now we've got this fancy loft dialog box. So I have to select the profiles that we're going to loft into each other. So profile 1 is going to be the innermost ring on either my top or my bottom. And then profile 2 is going to be the innermost ring on my bottom down there. And now I can click OK. Now that's kind of what we wanted to do. However, the loft tool can do a lot more. And we're going to delve into that now. So if I reopen my loft, you can see that there's a whole section down here that I kind of left blank called rails. So I can specify, so right now, the default of how this is working right now is it just makes a couple of straight lines that go translate one shape into another. But I can tell those lines what shape I want them to be. I can give them a curve if I want to do so. And we are going to do that now. So I'm going to click on OK here. I'm going to go back in time. So down here in my feature timeline, the last thing I did was make a loft. Something that you can do is you can click on your little, I call it a playhead, but I don't know if that's the official Fusion 360 Autodesk approved name for it. We're going to click on our little playhead, and I'm just going to drag it backwards one step. And you'll see your loft disappears. Panic! Exactly, that is the right face. So don't panic. You have a towel. It'll be just fine. So we've gone back in time before we made that loft because we want to add some guide rails to this. Now, if I remember correctly, or the thing that is key about guide rails is we need to have the sketch that connects these two things together has to have common points on it. Has to have points that, like the point on this circle, has to have a point that exists right in the same spot on the rail that moves from one to another. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back in time even further, and we're going to make those points. So that very first sketch we made, if I right click on it and I say edit sketch, now we go back in time to when we were making that first sketch, and now I can add in some reference points. So we don't do this a whole lot. I don't think we've ever done this in class. You can make, in addition to lines and circles and squares and diamonds, you can make a single point. Are you editing a sketch?
Yes. Oh, that's why.
Cool. So now we can add a point. So if we click on create and then point, I want to add points at a couple of spots, at 4 spots here on the large diameters of my circle here. So I'm going to add a point right there. I'm going to add a point right there. I'm going to add a point over here, and it kind of, my mouse will kind of snap to that circle. So we want it to be right on the circle. That's really important.
That's the adding the point part. I know where to add it, I just don't know like that.
So, we have to go forward in time a little bit.
Oh, am I too far back?
You're too far back. There we go. Now you can right click on that sketch and say edit sketch.
And then add sketch.
There we go. So now all of our sketching tools came to life there. Now you can click on create and then point.
There it is. Point.
Cool. So you just want to add them at the 4 spots that are the large diameters of our ellipse. And we want to make sure they exist right on, like if my point is here, that will not work for us. The point has to be directly on the circle, or the ellipse rather. So if I hover my mouse until it kind of snaps right into place, and then the same thing over here, snaps right into place, then I can say finish sketch once I've got those points in. Now I want to add those same points to my bottom sketch. So I'm going to do it the exact same way. I'm going to find the sketch in my feature timeline, or our sketch here that we totally named bottom. I can right click on my sketch in my sketches folder there as well. It's another reason it's handy to name your sketches. And I'm going to say edit sketch. And again, I'm going to come to my create menu. I'm going to find my point tool.
Did my offset too close to you?
Ah. And I'm going to add in my 4 points. And then I'm going to say finish sketch here. And now we've got some points. Some beautiful single point in space kind of things. Cool. Points.
I accidentally put one on the inner one.
We want to have an inner and outer. Oh, I see. That's fine. You can have some extra points there.
This one's on the inner circle.
Yeah, 2 of them. That's exactly what we want. 1 point on the inner and 1 point on the outer.
Oh, we do?
Yeah. So a total of 4 points on each sketch.
Okay.
1 point on the inner, 1 point on the outer. All right, very nice, very premium. All right, cool.
That's on both ellipses though?
Yeah, so we've got 4 points on each sketch. All right, I'm going to move forward here just because we're kind of running short on time and I want to get a shape out of this class. So the next thing I need to do here is I need to draw my rails. So I need to draw my rails on a plane that exists where these points exist. Now the points exist right over the top of each other, right? Here, let me zoom in a little bit. We can agree that the points exist right over the top of each other, and all of the points exist on this common line. So in this case, we can just make another plane at an angle. But I'll point out that there's a couple of different ways to skin this cat. So we could choose to make a plane at an angle. And if we make our plane at an angle on this line that bisects everything, right? That line there cuts all my sketches in half, and I can just make this a 90-degree line, and then we're good there, right? The other way that I think we can do this is you can make a plane based on 3 points. Plane through 3 points. So just another way to locate a plane based on 3 existing points. And we've got plenty of points that we could do that with. So if I wanted to use this plane through 3 points option, I could pick on any 2 points that exist on one of my sketches, and then a third point that exists on the other one of my sketches there. So both of those ways will get you to the right outcome, which is a plane that goes right through those 2 sketches.
What's the third point need to be?
So as long as there are 2 points, two points on one sketch, and then a third point on the other sketch up here, then you'll get it in the right spot.
Should go through, I guess this is right.
Yeah, it should cut right down the middle.
Yeah, it cuts
of the
through
long-
the middle of both the ovals.
Exactly. Cool. So now that we've got a plane that cuts through that, now we can draw a sketch on that plane. So from my create menu, I'm going to go ahead and choose to create a sketch. I'm going to specify that brand new plane that we just made. And now I want to bring over those points. So we've got points that exist on our sketches here. Now I'm looking at it kind of at a side, so these ellipses just turn into lines, right? But we can still see clearly our points. And we want to take those points and bring them over to the sketch that we've just made, so we know that we've got points that exist at the exact same place in space on all of these sketches. And we can do that with the project option. Project is a super powerful tool here. So we'll use that project option to just take those points that we've got, and if I just go over them individually and specify each one of these 8 points.
So what was the project option?
It is in the create menu, and then down to project include, and then project. It's also the P key on your keyboard.
You just click all
The 4 outer points.
of them? Oh, 4, oops.
Yeah. Now, if you clicked the middle point, that's totally fine. What we probably don't want to do is specify the line. So if we accidentally project the line over, we'll have to delete that, because we really just want just the points. The line will get in the way. If we've got a line, kind of when you're using paths to connect 2 lofts, any contiguous line will just kind of become part of that path. So you can't really have lines on a sketch that's your sketch path that aren't part of the path that you want to make. Does that make sense? We'll get there. Okay, cool. So, you got your 8 points projected over?
I think so. You got 8 on the
I got 8. So 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom?
No,
No?
Okay, now
I fell behind with the whole 8 points, and I was trying to add the other 4, so I fell behind with the inserting the plane. I'm not even sure I put it in the right spot.
Yeah, so let me do this. So this sketch is that one right there. I'm just gonna fix the angle on this.
Okay.
So if I just give it a horizontal vertical spot for some reason. Like these points should be there. And there, there we go. Alright, and now the plane that divides that in half in the right way is if we construct a plane at an angle from that plane right there. There we go. And then we'll create a sketch on it. That's alright. And now I'm gonna grab my project tool and we're gonna grab. Those points, and then right there on that sketch, it's gonna be these points. Okay. Cool. So now we just have to connect some dots to actually make the path that we're doing here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my arc tool. So for my create menu, I'm going to go ahead and grab my arc and my 3-point arc. And I am going to specify a couple of paths here. So the path for my outer shape will connect my outer points, right? So this outer point connects to that outer point. And this outer point will connect to that outer point. And whatever curve you want to make this, you can make it. That's totally fine. Something that feels like a comfortable handle shape to you. Whatever that looks like. And then the inner points, I'm going to connect in the same way here. So the back one, I'll make kind of almost parallel to it, and the front one, I'm going to give it a little bit different shape there, just because I can.
I'm not fighting about points.
Zoom in a little bit. Where do points go? I think we're looking at the wrong side potentially. There you go. So if you click on, I think there we go. So if you click on the word right, there we go. So now you can connect your points there. Yeah. Yeah, whatever shape you end up with, we really just want to connect our dots. Again, we're just getting learning how to use some of these surface tools is the goal here.
First one first.
Okay. We'll check.
All right. Cool.
I'm so zoomed in, I can't differentiate between the two different points on the quickie.
Oh, you mean you need to zoom in more? Or
I don't know how to. I don't know if I'm explaining
yeah,
that right.
the more zoomed in you are, the further away your points should get from each other,
I'm
like
probably
visually
setting
on
it
the screen,
wrong.
right? Yeah. So if you zoom
Yes.
in.
See, I clicked on the wrong one. That was like, but then I clicked on the top one without. That makes sense. So I'm gonna
Oh, I see
delete
what
that.
you're saying.
So let's see. Now try that again. So create, and then the arc.
And I would zoom in more. So you're not zoomed in enough. Well, we're almost to the end of class here, so let me keep going. All right, so we've got our lines drawn. So I'm going to say finish sketch. And now I'm going to take my playhead. Remember way back at the beginning of class, we went back in time before our loft. I'm going to take my playhead and I'm going to drag it to after my loft tool here now. So my loft is back into place, but we've also got our paths drawn. So now, if we choose to edit that feature, that loft feature, now I can specify some rails. The way I specify adding my rails on here is I've got a guide type here, so you can have a center line or you can have rails. And my guide type is, I believe when you hover over that it says rails, yeah. So you can have rails or you can have a center line. I've indeed drawn rails, so I'm going to make sure my rails box is highlighted. If I click on the little pointer, the little image of a mouse here, now I can specify my two inner lines there. And you can see it shrinks that right in. So now my loft will take that shape of my rails. Now I could specify more than two rails if I wanted to. If I wanted, right now I'm controlling it in two directions. So I'm getting a curved shape in like the X direction, let's say, but in the Y direction it's still straight. So I could specify more rails if I wanted to exercise some more control over this. But for now I'm good. So I'm just going to say OK.
What if I accidentally, their profile one, I accidentally made my rails profiles. How do you delete a bad profile? I accidentally got them, I don't know how.
Oh, if you click on the profile and then you hit the X button.
Oh, this is the.
Yeah, that will get rid of that profile. There you go. So there you go. Now
Then
you're
go
good.
over here.
So if you click on the little triangle, the arrow, there we go.
That was my, I missed that step.
So I think you just want to click on just the inner ones. Because I think the loft that we were doing was the inner loft. So you just want to click on the two inner ones. There we go, that one. Now, sweet.
Then hit OK.
Then you can hit OK. So let's go a little bit further. We got a little bit of time, so we might go over a couple minutes if that's all right with you. Let's make another loft because we've got the rails that exist there already for it. So from the Create menu, let's go ahead and grab the loft tool again. And now this time we're going to loft our outer shape up to our other outer shape. So the outer ring will go to the other outer ring. And the guide rails will be our two outer guide rails. And then I'm going to say OK. Now what I'd like to do is create a cutout shape. So I've got here, this is, if you can imagine where we're at here, this is the inner shape. And then the outer shape is outside. So I want to create this little cutout region here. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to, I imagine this cutout region as being like, hey, you could put a button here. So you could put like the trigger for your handle, like on a power tool or whatever. So we'll create that little recess there that we could put a little trigger or button. I'm going to do that by creating another plane. So I need a plane that exists kind of like off to the sides of one of my handles, on the side of my handle here, up in this area. If I go ahead and grab my offset plane option, I can make a plane that is kind of offset in front of my handle. So we want it to be in front of our handle, but not like way in front of the handle. So here is in front of it. If I go 1.5 inches, that's fine. So the idea is that we've got a plane that exists out in front of our handle, but not like way out here, because it'll make it a pain in the butt later. Cool? And then I'm going to say OK. Now, on that plane, I am going to create a sketch. In fact, here, I've got a sketch to name. We're going to keep up with naming our planes. This is kind of my center plane. And this plane that I just made, this is going to be for our trigger cutout. Alright, so we've made that plane. Now, if I click on the Create menu, I can create a sketch on that plane that we just made. And if I click on that, then we'll spin around so we're looking directly at our object here. I am just going to draw a circle. I'm just going to make a simple center diameter circle. I'm going to kind of ballpark it here as like being in the middle. And give it a little bit of dimension there. I'm going to make it 1 inch. So it's a decent size on the outside there. If I was being exact about it, what I would do is I would project over one of these curved lines that was our rail, so that I know our center line is right in the middle. But in the interest of time, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say finish sketch. And now I'm going to take this circle and I'm going to use the extrude tool from the Create menu in the Surface workspace here. So you'll be able to see that the extrude tool works differently here in the Surface workspace. Normally, with the extrude tool, we'd be selecting the face of our extrusion. But in a lot of these surface tools, you don't want to select the face of the extrusion. You want to select the line. Because we're making an extrusion from a line segment. We're not really extruding out a shape with a volume. We're extruding out a hollow surface here. And I'm going to look down through the bottom of my handle until I can see it popping out there. I want to make sure that I can see it popping out of both of my surfaces in the inside there. And I'm just going to give it a little taper. My taper is going to be like -20. Yeah, that'd be phenomenally adequate. So I'm still cutting through both of my surfaces. I'm going through both. I'm not really cutting yet, but we're going to use this surface in order to do some cutting. All right, and then I'm gonna make it a new body, and I'm gonna say OK. Now, believe it or not, we've got all of the parts that we need to make our three-dimensional shape. I'm gonna name that my cut plane. And my bodies here, let's go ahead and make sure I've got good names for my bodies, because this will become really important in just a minute. So I've got an inner shape, I've got an outer shape, and I've got a cutting shape. So I'm gonna walk around, see how you guys are doing with your funky curvy surfacey shapes. Nice, very nice.
I need to edit. I think what's throwing me off is I need to edit my offset. It is too close.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
I can't.
If you
do
zoom
anything.
in, or this little, that's our offset right there. So now you can make that a bigger number. You make it like 0.1 or 0.2.
That is throwing me all off. Okay.
There we go.
Now I can separate my.
Now you got it. Now you can see your lines.
Hmm?
All right, cool. So now we're going to use our surfaces to cut away from our other surfaces. And if that seems like a weird concept, it's because it is, because these surfaces have 0 dimension. So it's weird to use them to cut things. But you can do that. And I am going to probably use exclusively, when I start selecting things now, I'm going to use exclusively my bodies in my bodies folder, because all of my surfaces are right on top of each other here. And it's going to be difficult to specify what I'm using to cut and what I'm using as the tool. So just as a forewarning, this is why naming your bodies is really important in this case, in all cases, but especially here, because I'm going to use them to know what to cut. So from my modify menu here, I can go ahead and choose the split body. Actually, can I use the trim tool here? Does that work? Nope, definitely not. It probably does, but I might not be using it right. Removes the selected area of a surface body using the specified cutting tool. So can I trim this, this, and that? Oh, look at that! So
I fixed mine, but now I don't have your cool looking comb thing.
I'll come over to you at the end here. We're almost done here. So I'm not going to use the trim tool. I'm going to use the split body tool because it's the tool I used when I was preparing for this class. But trim will also do a lot of this stuff that we're trying to do here. So actually, let's try this together. We're learning things together. So I'm going to grab from my modify menu. I'm going to grab the trim tool because it seems like it's going to save us a step in a little bit later. So what it wants us to do first is select the tool that we're using to trim. And in this case, we want to get rid of this excess of our little cone here. So the tool that we're going to use to do the trimming is the outer part of the outer shape of our, I don't know, part. So I'm going to click on the outer shape, and then I guess what it wants us to do next is select the part the thing we want to trim. So I'm going to trim away. I'm going to click on this outer ring here, and in theory, that will just go away. It turns red. So red is usually a thing like, hey, it's going to go away, and I'll say okay. Now I'm going to do that a couple more times. So from my modify menu, I'm going to go ahead and grab my trim tool. I'm going to specify the tool. The trimming tool in this case is our cut shape. So now we want to use this cut shape to cut out this hole that is the outside of our piece here, right? So because I can't click on that surface because it exists inside of another one, I'm going to click on it here in my bodies folder. And then the part that I want to trim is this circle. I want to cut this circle right out of that body there. So I'm going to click on it, and it's turning red. So that's a good thing. And I'm going to say OK. So now we can see right into the inside of our, right into the other shape. So I'm going to do that one more time because we need to trim away this inner, these inner bits as well. Actually, I got to do it 2 more times. So I'm going to click on Modify. I'm going to grab my trim tool. Let's start by trimming away this cone bit. So the tool that I'm going to use to trim that cone bit is my inner shape. It's what I call my inner shape. So I can click on it here in the bodies folder of my browser. And the part that we're cutting away is that little cone. So I'm going to click on that little cone and we're going to cut that right out. Turned red, so I'm going to say OK. And now last but not least, we're going to use the trim tool one more time. And we're going to cut as the tool that is doing the cutting is our cut shape. And then as the thing that we are cutting away, we're cutting away everything except for that little circle. So that little circle is all we want left. So I'm going to cut away everything that is not that. And I'm going to say OK. Now we've got a funky little shape here.
I like trimming everything away when I did that.
Oh, so you don't have like a tiny little bit in the inside?
No, I don't. On my second trim, it got rid of everything inside.
Oh, okay, cool. Because all we want is the leftover little bit there. You can always, trim gives you an icon in your feature timeline here. So we can always go back in time. If we right click on that and say edit feature, you can change your trimming tools around there. If you accidentally clicked on them in the wrong order or whatever. So the trimming tool for me is that little cut bit, and the part that we're going to trim away is all that. And I'm going to say OK. Now, before we can stitch this all together, because technically we have 3 different surface bodies here, and we want to have one surface body. So we're going to stitch them all together. But before we do that, I believe all of our surfaces need to be facing the same direction. So just to make surfaces even more confusing, they are 0-dimensional, but also have a front and a back. So the silver surface is the front of your surface. The yellow surface is the back of your surface. Those are the surface normals. And we want all of our normals to be facing the same direction. I don't think it will let us stitch them together if they're not. So in the Modify menu, there is an option called Reverse Normal, where we can take any one of the surfaces and just flip it inside out or flip it around. So for me, my little cone here that I made is facing the wrong direction. So I just need to flip that so all of my normals are facing the right way. And now, finally, I can stitch these items together. So from the Modify menu, I can choose the Stitch option. And the surfaces that I'm going to stitch together are all of them. So if I click on each one of the surfaces in my bodies folder here, you can see that it's highlighted, some lines green. Those green lines indicate like, oh, these surfaces have edges that exist right on top of each other in the same place in space. These red lines here say, hey, I'm not seeing anything that these surfaces are connected to, so I can't stitch those surfaces to anything. But any of those green surfaces those green lines are just going to be stitched right together. And when I say okay, it'll take those three bodies and it will turn them into one.
Oh, body five.
Cool?
Yeah.
Now, if we wanted to print this, it would not work because the surfaces have no dimension. So the thing that I really like to use with my surfaces, now you could patch the top and bottom. We could do that. We could patch the top. We could patch the bottom and make it an enclosed shape, make it a solid volume. But for the purposes of a tool, we really want these to be hollow anyway, like a tool handle. So there is an option here called Thicken in the Create menu. And in theory, I can click on, I'm going to click on the body in my bodies folder. And I'll show you why, because here if I hover over my surface, it thinks I just want to, I'm selecting faces. I'm not selecting bodies, so if I click on this face, it will only thicken that face. And I want to thicken everything. So I'm going to click on the body in my bodies folder. And I had been doing this before, so there was a number already in here. But you could give it a dimension of a 16th or something like that.
Mine can't do it.
Oh, you get an error?
Yeah.
Is it swearing at you?
What
What kind of
like
error?
whole one either. And that one's
I think we got some extra surfaces in there. I think
something didn't quite.
you didn't get rid of a surface on the inside there. So that's why I can't thicken that. But I can thicken everything except for that.
Where's the surface on the
Which, I think you turned it off. So, turn on, maybe stitching together. Click on Create. I'm sorry, Modify. And stitch. And you're going to stitch that one to that one? Yeah, there you go. And now if you say OK. Now turn on your other surface again. So you got that one thing to go that shape. And now if you go to Create and then thicken. And now you just choose that 5, 5. And now you give it a 0.05. There we go, cool. All right, so surfaces. Surfaces are cool and powerful. You can make all sorts of weird shapes with them in conjunction with the loft tool or the sweep tool. Using them to intersect each other and cut out from other surfaces, and surfaces are super cool. In the next advanced class, we are going to make a helmet. We've done helmets before in this class, but we've not done them, I don't think, with surfaces. So I will bring a helmet that I have been making at home. There's a helmet. This helmet was made to fit around my head because I got a scan of my head. And we could talk offline about how to scan your own head if you want to scan your own head, and then you can make surfaces around your head. So
Now that's next week? Or?
that is 2 weeks. 2 weeks from
So it's
now.
every other.
Yeah, it's every other is the advanced class, and then next week will be a beginner-friendly class where we won't scare everybody away again, hopefully. And we'll be back to beginner-friendly, and then we'll go back to the advanced class the week after that. Thanks for being my first guinea pigs for the advanced class. We will see you next time.